I'm going to set you up.
Thank you.
Can I listen? Yeah. Guess what? Look at what you can build on $3 per acre. This is not a bad house. I'm thinking, oh my God, I gotta stop going to the direction.
3/4 of an acre is not that big.
I grew up my house is 1.5. I live in a bedroom.
No, what it was.
Downtown means bigger property.
Well, we have a workshop.
Were people talking about it?
It's okay until then it went south. It's all Mr. Rickey's fault.
Doesn't it surprise you that we're looking as far away? Doesn't it surprise you that people?
Yes, ask Al Rickey what he is. I don't understand. I think it's only because of not in my backyard kind of thing. The development where he lives off East Line Road, or actually the development is on East Line Road. The farmer sold development. In return,
Good to see you too.
they conserve some land and because they're going
Let me know.
it's a very dense development.
You have meetings or something, tax assessment.
Every other.
Some to say. And it's just, I know, it's too much for me.
Because they didn't let at least a single.
Good evening, everybody. Gentlemen. Oh, I don't know where the town attorney is. So, good evening, everybody. This is our town board agenda meeting. First on our agenda tonight is we have a presentation. President Art Lyons of the Malta Ridge Volunteer Fire Company will be presenting, I believe, on behalf of both Malta Ridge and Round Lake Hose Company for us tonight. So, Art?
Thanks for the opportunity to present the status of the fire companies. I am representing both Round Lake and Malta Ridge tonight. So it's an annual update. Hopefully we'll do this every year. Cover some of the highlights of 2024. So as always, our mission is to provide exceptional emergency services to the town of Malta. That's per contract. We're in a 3-year contract right now. 2024, 2025, 26, and 27 are the 3 years of that contract. But it's not just by contract. The volunteers of both companies really believe in it and want to provide good services to the town. And I think it goes. We talked last meeting, maybe last year. We talked about the Insurance Services Office, the ISO. That's a group that audits fire departments across the United States. And we do have a top rating. We're in the top 20% of the country and top 50% in New York State. It has gone down since 2009, but that's mainly driven by water supply. That's outside the control of the fire departments, but is something maybe in future workshops we could work on. The fire department scored very high, but the water service has gone down. So it's important to note that the ISO gives 2 scores, one for the community houses that are within 1,000 feet of a hydrant and within 5 miles of a fire station. They get 1 score. Everybody else gets a lower score. So what we work on is obviously what the score goes towards is the houses, again, within 5 miles and 1,000 feet of a hydrant. You can see in these photos the firemen that are in front of the Malta Ridge Tower 388. Those are both Round Lake and Malta Ridge firefighters. They march together more and more. We're doing operations together. The other photo is Round Lake trucks and in front of the shared station. We'll talk more about that. So who are we? We're all the volunteers. The chief officers lead the 2 companies. There's at the bottom of the screen, there are the members who made LOSAP, Length of Service Award Program, minimum numbers. 34 made it in Malta Ridge, and 60 members at Round Lake made those numbers. Those are generally considered our most active members. There are more members than that in each company. Going towards the exceptional service, we are about 4 times. If you compare Malta to other towns of similar populations, that volunteerism is about 4 times higher than those other communities. So we are blessed with having quite a few volunteers. The stations we have, Malta Ridge Station 1's the upper left-hand corner towards the north end of town. It was built in 1993. On the right-hand side is the shared station built in 2014. And lower left, the Round Lake Station 1, the south part of town, built in 2019. So those, the shared station, about $2 million left to pay on that building. So we are still paying the mortgage. It matures in 2035, so we got a ways to go to pay for that. But that shared station has allowed us to do quite a bit and has supported us well. So we do shared operations. Both companies can respond out of that station. Both companies can ride on either truck. So that's really important for response, especially during day shift. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's very hard to get volunteers away from their jobs to go respond to calls.
Excuse me, quick question.
Yeah.
How do you know which station is to respond to which?
So the county dispatches. So when you make a 911 call, it goes to the county, they dispatch who's needed. So the Round Lake Station, number 1, it replaced a 40-year-old station. So about in 2019, they knocked down their old station and rebuilt in that same location. If you also noticed on Route 9, we've taken down the for sale signs in front of our old South Station that was built in 1978. It still sits there. We use it for storage. We were trying to make some capital improvements in that area. It didn't pan out, so most likely we will knock that down and rebuild a storage and / training facility in that spot. There's about 3 acres of land we can build on there. So apparatus, this is a list of apparatus for both Malta Ridge and Round Lake. About $5.5 million worth of apparatus for both companies. The largest percentage of both budgets for each company goes towards apparatus replacement. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, recommends replacement over 15 years. We average about 18 years per truck, and NFPA also recommends about 20 years. If it's a 20-year-old truck, it should be in reserve status. It should not be frontline status. So also in the news, So several United States senators have written letters to the CEOs of the 3 major companies that build fire apparatus. They're demanding basically for information about why the cost of fire trucks have gone way up, why the delays are so long to get fire trucks. So that is a big issue. A fire truck built in 2013 for $500,000 now costs $1 million. Our ladder truck built in 2013 cost about $1 million. It's over $2 million now. That's about 100% increase in cost. Our budget has gone about 30% in that same amount of time. So that is a big concern long-term, and I'm glad to see. So 2 senators wrote letters to those CEOs. Another 2 senators, but each of them are bipartisan, one Republican, one Democrat, also wrote to the IAFF, International Association of Firefighters, to understand how fire departments are compensating for those large increases in cost. You can read an article from February in the New York Times about all this. Okay. Call numbers. So over the last decade or so, the calls have doubled. If you notice, in 2024, the numbers have dropped a little bit. There's some changes in box alarms, like how we respond to calls, but essentially we're still on a rising trend for the number of calls. Part of that's probably driven by population. Part of that is how we manage mutual aid calls, automatic mutual aid. As the number of volunteers go down, we're automatically calling for mutual aid more often. So the result is our mutual aid calls are going up. Or correction, our overall calls are going up.
So you're getting 2 calls a day.
Okay.
Pretty on average, yep.
You're not leaving, do you have to leave the firehouse on every call, or how does that work on the assessment?
So any call, the chief officers immediately, they have fire trucks, pickups, basically. They go immediately to the scene. They'll make decisions, but meanwhile, all the volunteers are headed towards the firehouse no matter what. A lot of times we can be held in station, but more often than not, at least a truck or 2 is going to go to that call.
That's a lot of calls.
It is a lot of calls. Yep. It wears down on the membership. I joined the firehouse in 2012. We were doing about 300 calls. Things, were, once a day, once every other day, but now it's twice a day. Yeah.
Says I don't like doing math in public, but I think a year is 365.
Yeah.
And we're at almost 700.
Heading that way.
Question.
Yep.
How does your apparatus compare to other towns of the same size?
Are you talking about number, type?
Kind of a graph on that, because I've heard through the grapevine from some pretty good sources that your apparatus is better than some cities close to us. And this would kind of put to rest that conversation.
Okay, yeah, I can
More
grab
time.
some data. If you're talking about Saratoga Springs,
Saratoga Springs, yeah.
yeah, I can.
But I would like to see a town of the same size, how our apparatus compares to their apparatus. Because what concerns me is I've heard many times that the equipment is going up in cost 30 to 35%. So I want to see how we are to the other towns
Okay. Yeah, I can.
in that regards.
We'll do. I'll pull
I'd be
some numbers.
very interested in that,
Okay.
okay?
So that's calls. Next is incident types. Almost half, 40%, false alarms. So these are alarm systems that are going off either spurious or other types of mishaps. Good intent calls, people smell smoke or see something that doesn't look right, those are reported. Car accidents, rescue about 20%. Other types of rescues, stuck in an elevator, things like that, we're all responding to those. About 10%. So about for Malta Ridge, these are Malta Ridge's numbers. Round Lakes is similar. About 10% actually involve fire. So about 60 calls of those 600 calls for actual fires. And then there's some smaller miscellaneous type calls that we do. These categories are national categories. We have to input all our calls into the National Fire and Incident Risk Reporting System.
Is there can you assign a cost to each occurrence or each incident?
That's hard. So that question came up, I think, last year, like what's the price per call? But basically, if you take our budget, we're a nonprofit. If you take our budget and divide it by calls, that's how much it costs. We don't regulate how many times we get called. If they call us 10 times in a day, we're going to respond 10 times that day.
How about in terms of personnel? Do you have a minimum number of personnel that have to respond to each incident?
So that goes back to volunteerism. So we rely on folks, every member of the firehouse gets notified if there's a call, a single call. And those folks have to make, it's in our bylaws, as part of our mission, to respond if you can. Okay. If you're at work and you can't, we're not, that person can't go to the call. So I think you asked, is there like a personnel cost per call? But again, that's really hard to nail down.
Okay.
We do, both companies have like a gas card program, like a reimbursement, for driving to the firehouse and back home again. But that's minimal. Yeah. We're talking like dollars for that per call.
You don't get any money back on
On false alarms, do you?
So that's a good question. So every so often, if it's egregious, the chiefs will ask for some sort of fee based on if, there have been some buildings where the alarm goes off several times a day, no matter what we'd say, and we will try and recoup some of that. But that's not a requirement. We don't have code enforcement. All right.
How many calls do you have for mutual aid to Mechanicville, Boston, Saratoga Springs?
I can get that. We have that number broken down. I do not have it with me. So let me get that to you.
Actually, Art, I think for like Round Lake, it's roughly probably like 35% is mutual aid. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Ed
Cameron
Cameron's
from Round
right.
Lake, I got held up in an accident in Rexford.
Yeah.
I apologize for being late.
Okay.
So, yeah, talking to the microphone, please, Ed.
Yeah, so for the breakdown, it's probably 35% or so, maybe up to 40% are mutual aid. And that includes the calls with Malta Ridge.
So it includes the mutual aid you provide for each other.
Right. So
Okay.
it's automatic daytime
Right.
mutual aid, right?
So, yeah, I would like to know, the two numbers, what's the mutual aid overall, and then what is it excluding Round Lake and Malta Ridge respectively?
Okay. I'll get you that.
Yep, as part of the mutual aid that we provide, those departments also provide mutual aid to the town of Malta, so it's not a one-way street. There is a benefit to the mutual aid program.
I understand.
Sorry. Do you have any contracts with Boston Lake at all?
Malta Ridge only has one contract, but
Yeah, the village of Round Lake does provide fire protection services to a piece of the town of Boston. So the area yep, it is a fire contract similar to what Malta has with the village of Round Lake. And it's the piece just west of East Line Road, over towards roughly to
Why
where
is that?
Lakeside. Why is,
Yeah.
that's the way the way town of Boston has chosen to provide their fire protection services. They've broken it up. There's some fire districts, like the Burn Hills Fire District covers part of it, Boston Lake Fire District, and then other pieces they've contracted out. And we have one of those pieces.
Thank you.
Does,
That contract just stay with Round Lake, or does it get split to, just stays with,
Contract is with the village
Round
of
Lake.
Round Lake, yes.
Got 2 more slides. This one is just, we're talking about costs now. This graph just shows over the last 10 years or so, how much each fire company has been paid from the town. There is that, our actual cost flatline for several years, that was per contract. We're trying to get back up into where, we'd be consistent with national inflation. In 2024, the fire company's contract was increased by 6%. This year, it was increased by 9.78, so almost 10%. The next 2 years is only 2%. So it's really concerning there. Again, as like I said, those the senators are really going after the fire apparatus companies, about 30% of our budget. So if our budget was $1 million, $300,000 is going towards fire apparatus each year, and we're not keeping pace. They're going up 100%, but we're only going up like 5%. So that's concerning. In the near term, we're maintaining status quo, but it's unsustainable. So hopefully the senators will get some resolution on that. It's not just Malta, that's across the country. Every fire department's struggling with apparatus costs.
What percentage of your budget do you carry as either financial reserves or contingency?
Well, I can speak to Malta Ridge. We don't want to go under 4 months of operating funds. That's about $300,000.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm saying for Round Lake.
We're similar for Round Lake. We keep an operating reserve with the hose company, and then there's a capital reserve for apparatus replacement.
Yeah, a lot of times people try to get rid of those reserves, but you absolutely need them. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yep. So the last slide is just the challenges. So we talked about recruitment and retention. We're always looking for members. So there's Recruit New York is April 26th. So across the state, those are open houses. Those are for members of the community to come out and see what the fire department is and does, and hopefully turn in an application. Again, this is all volunteer, so we rely on those. No matter how nice the apparatus are, if we don't have members to drive them, we're gonna fail. So rely on the volunteers. The New York State has implemented a stipend program, and both fire companies have implemented that. There's courses that New York State will pay volunteers to go attend a class. Those are like the basic minimum ones, the basic exterior, interior operations, also fire officer. New York State will pay them, but it also allowed our fire companies to also pay members to attend classes without jeopardizing their volunteer status. So we've implemented that. That costs money. We talked about call volumes going up. We talked about the apparatus cost. Capital improvements, that's something we can't, as stations reach 50, 60 years, we have to replace them. So that's something we have to work in our budgets long-term. And a few weeks ago, I was here talking about renewing a Malta Fire Protection Master Plan. That's really what my job is to look forward to. What's the town look like in 20 years, and are we getting ourselves in a position to support that? Mainly, when are we going to need station keepers and/or paid firefighters? Because that's not something the town can afford tomorrow. We have to start, kind of projecting for that. But like I said, for the next 2-3 years, we're in a good spot, and we're providing good services to the town.
A question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interest from developers wanting to develop very densely populated development areas. Could you just highlight the differences between serving in your capacity typical residential neighborhood versus a high-density multifamily, multi-unit dwelling?
Well, one thing that just comes to mind, the reason Malta Ridge has a 100-foot tower versus a 75 or something smaller was really driven by Ellsworth Commons. So the height of the building drove what type of apparatus we needed. That's one thing. As far as density, I'm not sure what kind of comments I'd have on.
One advantage is for the higher density buildings, they are required to have sprinkler systems. Single-family homes, that's still not required in New York State, so that's a big factor in the event of a fire. Those sprinkler systems do quite well at helping to keep the fire at bay and buy us time to get in there.
Thank you. Did you have a comment or a question?
I had a question. If the letters had to access Ellsworth here, would they access it from the front or the back?
That'd be a call by the chief officers. When they arrive, before the fire trucks arrive, there's often orders that are given for where to set up the apparatus around the building. So
The reason why I asked that is there's a lot of wires in the front of it, and I was wondering if those wires would actually inhibit that ladder getting up to the 3rd and 4th floor, I think.
Yeah, depending on, which floor it is, those wires absolutely do play a part in access. I believe when they were designing Ellsworth, there was a request made to
bury them.
utilities underground, and for whatever reason, it wasn't able to be done.
It's hard actually entering in there with a looking ladder. I don't even think it's possible.
No, the trucks can get in there. I know when the building plans come before the planning department, they verify the turning radius for the access roads and parking lots. So the trucks can get back there, and again, as long as it's plowed in the winter, we still have access.
Thank you.
What's the youngest my son can apply for a volunteer? What age?
So we both, Malta Ridge and Round Lake have a juniors program, their Explorer program. I think that's
Yeah, 14.
14.
14?
You can start.
And what to be a full-time volunteer, what is that age?
And then,
So you can join, I think, as a 16 as a firefighter, but you wouldn't be able to do interior firefighting until you're 18.
18. 18 full-fledged, should be soup to nuts. Junior starts at 14. We
there are
need,
some driving restrictions too. I think
Yeah.
drivers are 21 and older, I think.
I just want the public to hear. 14, come on and join. I'm trying to help you guys out.
So yeah, April 26th, please send everyone to the firehouses for that Recruit New York.
April 26th, there you go.
And May 16th, we're having a barbecue to raise funds. It's at the shared station. You can get tickets online.
May I ask a naive question? Be patient with me. I'm an old lady, and I know nothing about firefighting. But I mentioned this at a previous meeting. One looks at the news in the last year or so about some across the country, everywhere from Maui to, I think, North Carolina. There have been some rather dramatic wildfires, and I think a lot of people have looked at what went right and what went wrong at some of those. And as our town grows and gets more dense, and probably some of the developments are challenging to get a lot of equipment into or whatever, when you think, if you had a magic wand, we have code enforcement, which I assume works with you folks to talk about, I know we went through something with a particular building recently, and that was not compliant. Are there things the town should be doing to do worst-case scenarios if there was a wildfire, or should we be enforcing? I mean, what kinds of things we're not looking at now could we look at? Like if someone clears a lot and then just leaves a lot of dried brush there for months and months, things like that. Should we be trying to regulate that kind of thing more, or what are your thoughts?
Well,
The master plan that was written in 2009 really had great ideas, not just for the fire departments, but for the town. I think following those recommendations, I want to workshop those. Those were some really good, like water supply type recommendations in the master plan. So that's my number one thought. Those are folks that do it, full-time, professional folks. But as far as brush and that kind of stuff, I don't know if I have any comments on.
Yeah, every spring, the state does have the burn ban with that in mind to help try and mitigate the wildfire risk before things start greening over again from the winter.
But you don't see any significant gap in, I don't know, access to water or access to?
Well, there are sections of the town that don't have hydrants. That's what Art was speaking to.
Do I dare ask what other vulnerable parts of town where
Anyway,
there is no water?
Yeah,
you think of something we
Ridge.
should be considering, as I
Family
said,
extension.
as particularly because of these rather dramatic, Los Angeles completely lost control, obviously, and it shocked me that could happen so quickly. And so I'd be interested if you thought there was anything the little town of Malta should
Well,
do.
think about it, and that drove, so the northern, our Station 1 in Malta Ridge, we have a tanker because the northern part of the town, there's a lot more communities without hydrants, so that's why that tanker sits in the station.
Thank you.
Yep,
Anything else? Thank you, gentlemen,
thank you,
and thanks for trying to keep us safe.
very welcome. Just gonna unplug this.
All right, so we will move on to the regular part of our meeting. We'll start with a salute to the flag and moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Oops. What happened to our clerk? Well, I'll entertain a motion to accept the town clerk's minutes for our April 7th, 2025 meeting.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Yep, because you weren't here. And next is comments from town residents. Anybody out there have anything they want to share with us this evening?
Peter Brooks, Malta Avenue Extension. I just wanted to thank the board for a lively and spirited workshop this afternoon before this meeting. I think it was great. I think a lot of things got discussed that it was time to discuss, so congratulations. And I think you made some great progress on the buffer issue between residential and commercial areas, and also, thank you, you increased the minimum lot size in R8. And thank you, there's now going to be a workshop on planned development districts. And thank you, you're now going to also consider the whole idea of term conservation easements. I'd like to suggest those are two big subjects, and you're probably going to want 2 workshops. That's my guess. I'd also just like to point out that there are more things discussed and recommended in the plan that haven't got a lot of attention yet in the comprehensive plan. Things like the scenic resources of Malta and mapping them, landscape stuff, also suggestions for architectural guidance in certain parts of town. These are more aesthetic things, but they all go towards the idea of trying to make sure Malta in the future is not any town, but it's hometown. It's unique and it's our own place. And I just would like to encourage the board to keep thinking in those terms, to take your time, do the job right with this zoning revision, and take on the mindset that you know, as the future comes forward and as development continues to occur in Malta, you all are active designers of the future of Malta. We don't have to take the mindset that we're passive victims, okay? You really have the power to shape a lot of what happens, and I applaud you for the steps you're taking to do that.
Thank you, Peter. Anyone else? All right, comments from town boards and department heads. I have a few things. First, we talked about this before. On May 1st, we will be testing our emergency sirens. It's kind of an archaic way to notify our residents, but until we have something better, which we are working on, it's just a test. They haven't been tested in several years. We don't know if they work. It'll be at noon on May 1st, so if you see a siren, I think it's going to be 3 blasts. Don't be alarmed, it's a test. Happy that you'll know they work. Our May meeting is being moved because of Memorial Day, so we will have our agenda meeting on May 19th instead of Memorial Day. This weekend and next weekend are the town-wide refuse drop-off, so we'll have dumpsters out here and people to help you if you have refuse you want to get rid of. There's a guidance and flyer. It's, you know, not just garbage or things like that, furniture, that kind of stuff. You can bring it here and it will go in the dumpster, and that is a free service for our town residents. There is an exhibit out in the hallway. It's an Erie Canal exhibit that is on loan to us from Saratoga County to commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the canal. It's 200 year. You're right. Time flies. It's quite interesting. It has the history of the canal and then a couple of artifacts from the canal. A little more serious event. As everyone is aware, there were 2 unrelated officer-involved shootings in Malta within a 24-hour period. The swift and efficient response by law enforcement to both included both the New York State Police and the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department. The actions of these 2 agencies prevented any bystanders or law enforcement from being seriously injured. And I think that the response is a testament to the training and dedication of the law enforcement that we depend on every day to keep us safe. So if you see any of them, say thank you. Last, I have prepared a statement that I would like to read regarding another issue, and I will ask the clerk to put it into the official minutes. I would like to address the matter that has been circulating on social media regarding the cancellation of the contract that the town of Malta had in 2023 and 2022 and 2023, no, 23 and 24, with the Saratoga County Sheriff to provide a contract car to be stationed at large in the Malta area. It has been rumored that I alone canceled that contract. To clarify, it was a unanimous decision by this board during the budget discussions. In our first workshop, we discussed that the $350,000 price tag was a hefty in a tight budget year. We discussed that the presence of the New York State Police Barracks in Malta provided us with a solid police presence. At the time, and still, the Saratoga County Sheriff's Office is short-staffed and the deputy could be better utilized elsewhere in the county. And in fact, the contract didn't mean that the sheriff didn't have the authority to reassign if there was a need elsewhere in the county. There were no objections during that workshop by any board members. We had subsequent budget workshops throughout October, and a preliminary budget was agreed on by the unanimous board. Again, no mention of the sheriff's contract in any of those budget meetings. These workshops, unfortunately, weren't streamed. In the future, every meeting hearing on the preliminary budget. This meeting is recorded and available on YouTube. Councilman Ricky was absent, but had indicated to the board via email that he was in favor of adopting the preliminary budget. During the public hearing, former Supervisor Mark Hammond questioned the elimination of the sheriff's contract. The only board member who reacted was Councilman McLaughlin, who strongly supported the elimination of the contract for the reasons that we all agreed on our first workshop. When it came time to vote for the budget, I offered my colleagues that we could set a special meeting in the future, not act on it that evening. And, but everyone agreed to act on it that evening. Councilman Warner did not support the budget, but his remarks indicate that it was because he didn't support the fire protection contracts. At no time does he mention the sheriff's contract. The suggestion that I alone canceled the contract is simply untrue. As Councilman Warner likes to remind me, I have no authority except the authority that is granted to me by this board. I couldn't legally have canceled that contract even if I'd wanted to. Lastly, to suggest that the events of the past year could have been prevented or the outcomes different if we'd had one more deputy in town is an insult to the dozens of law enforcement who respond to every event. The quick response to the incidents of April 9th and 10th proved that we have adequate police presence. In my opinion, the $350,000 would be better spent to address the mental health needs of our residents. Respectfully,
I got something
Cynthia
to
Young.
follow up on that. First of all, I want to thank Gary for putting up his yellow chains at the community center so people don't drive into the drainage area. Thank you very much, and I'm sure others are thankful also. Regarding the sheriff's contract, I just listened to everything she said. The fact is, and I went to the sheriff with others that are sitting here, and they can verify it. She was sent a letter in an email talking about the sheriff's contract. She said the town was no longer interested in it. We never found out as a town board, at least me and Al, that she absolutely said she wasn't going to entertain it until the budget meeting came up. And I did vote against the budget, that being one of the factors. And out of everybody sitting here, I have worked for more supervisors in this town than any of us. There has never been a supervisor that has lacked transparency to this town board as I've ever seen in the last 4 supervisors. I get a call every week. They talk about issues that they're having to think about. We discussed them before any supervisor made a decision on a contract that we had. So basically, what I'm saying is she's being deceiving by saying what she has, because she did cancel that contract with the sheriff. And I went to the sheriff, Mike Zerlo, and his understudy was somebody else that's sitting here, and he will confirm it. She never said to us before she sent that replying email back that she was going to cancel it. She did bring it up in the budget hearing, but that was quite a while after. And I'm looking forward to a very, very interesting budget meeting coming up in October, because she will still be here and it's her budget. She has got to be accountable. I'm not saying that one more car or 2 more shifts could have stopped the shooting, but they definitely could have responded in a lot faster manner, hopefully with the intent of stopping the shooting. You want that debate? I'm happy to have it here.
I got something to say on it too, set the record straight with my recollection. During the budget meeting, when the line item came up for the sheriff's department, because we're looking at the line on them, right? We did vote unanimously, not vote, we discussed unanimously to move on because we didn't have a contract in front of us. Now, we should have maybe put a placeholder on there for $300-some-odd thousand, but we did not have a contract presented for us for the form of 2025. So yes, we moved on, and the budget wasn't voted unanimously, like you says. I wasn't there, so it wasn't unanimous. I did indicate I was happy with everything else, and expecting a police contract to come forthwith, but we haven't gotten it yet, so. Did we discuss it during the budget? Yes. Did we move on? Yes, from it, because we couldn't vote on something that we didn't have. We didn't have numbers, and we only had last year's contract. So it's semantics. That's all I got. Oh, and by the way, I do thank the sheriff's department, the troopers, and the fire department, you know, for the last month being trying at Ellsworth and, you know, at Market 32 and other police activities. It's a tough job, thankless job, and I thank you too.
Just to, I couldn't find the date of the email, but I will confirm that. My email with Under Sheriff Jeff Brown came after we had budget discussions. And the budget, the preliminary budget was set. Well,
And you responded in a matter of minutes, he said.
I'll look it up tomorrow what the date of that was. It was definitely after we
Somebody
had,
else was here that contested
we had
right
had
about our
a
conversation.
preliminary budget. So-
May I say
The other
something?
thing Also, we grant you the power to sign contracts. We do not grant you the power to remove a contract without discussing with the town board.
And-
That could possibly be an ethics issue,
Can
right?
I,
It could be.
it,
Be very careful about that line going forward. You must disclose and talk and converse with the town board before you take any drastic action.
it's, I wasn't here for the
I'll pull the
vote.
town manual out.
It
It's-
sounds
it-
like the board acted in good faith. The board made a decision to adopt a budget that did not include that line item. If the board has an interest in revisiting the contract and putting it in, they could always make an amendment to the contract and find $350,000 to
Right.
put back in. I mean, it's that simple.
That's
really.
another matter.
The fact that it wasn't even discussed burns me. It really burns me before you took action on it. Now, if you tell me the opposite of what Zerlo's saying, I'd be very shocked. I want to see that email, and I'll get it from him too.
You
As
shall.
soon as I leave here, he's gonna hear about it.
May I say something?
Here are the dates.
Yes, Barbara, please do.
I'd like to address this issue as well, but from a different point of view. It is my personal opinion, when the police show up, we've already missed an opportunity. Something has already gone very wrong. And I think the incidents that happened in Malta, terrible things, but I think it had more to do with mental health issues than it had to do with whether there were armed constables standing around 24 hours a day, every 30 feet down the road. The police, one of the offenders, alleged offenders, literally went to the police station. So it wasn't a lack of police that caused that incident to happen. He literally shot at them at the police station. So there were police there. They handled it. I think, what a tough job. And I'm so grateful that there are people willing to do that. And I can't imagine how their families felt, you know, that their husband's father, whatever, had to go through a tough week like that. One of the things, instead of looking at how we're going to have more cars randomly driving around Malta, I'd really like to pursue how we might better serve folks in Malta with access to mental health. I know that there are services available, you know, through social services in the county, but if you are living in Malta and maybe your life isn't going so well and you don't have a car and whatever, maybe you can't access those. And I would like maybe to consider the town developing a small task force to explore whether we could provide or convince the county to provide, you know, once or twice a month, a social worker coming to perhaps the community center and people being able to make appointments there. You know, if you have, for example, perhaps a wife who is concerned about her husband's mental health, where does she go for help? if we could bring mental health services to Malta for those who may have difficulty accessing them, this might help. And we may be able to do it. We could make a little task force. We have folks who live in Malta, medical folks and people with counseling experience who I'm sure would be happy to serve on a task force to explore other options than the one that I just mentioned, of perhaps having a county social worker come once or twice a month. I mean, we have people now who come and help folks with their taxes at the community center. Why can't we have them come and help them access resources for what's going wrong in their lives? And I think that would be more effective than, just increasing endlessly police coverage. I think the police did respond in ways that were appropriate. Very sad. I hope it never happens again. But I do think it's mental health, not the lack of a patrol. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Well, I'm the last one who hasn't commented on it. I'm a retired state trooper, as many of you know. I was against renewing the sheriff's contract for reasons I stated several times in the fall of last year. I believe we have enough coverage. Among the reasons is you've already paid for the sheriff's coverage in your taxes. We have a state police barracks here, and because geographically where Malta is located in the county, the sheriffs are always here in Malta. Notwithstanding, if the people want to pay additional money, for which we did not have this last budget year, but maybe it's scalable, you want a sheriff's deputy, an extra deputy on Friday or Saturday night, that's something we can look at for next year. And one of the places where you can discuss that, come and discuss it, is in our Public Safety Committee meetings, which we hold about every month, month and a half. We've had arguably would be the wrong word. We've had 4 homicides in Malta in 2024, 2025. 2 under the sheriff's contract, 2 this year not under the sheriff's contract. Both times the police response was immediate and sufficient for the nature of the incident that occurred. If we believe that an additional deputy in Malta, dedicated deputy, would have increased their response times, well, that's something we can discuss. I am a huge proponent of establishing maybe a Malta security patrol, similar to what Clifton Park has. I believe that one costs as much money as hiring a dedicated deputy to patrol Malta. Just so everybody knows, there are deputies dedicated to Malta already. They're dedicated, there's not a piece of this county that's not covered by state police or sheriff's department. But I would like to explore the possibility of having a dedicated Malta security patrol, a patrol that could patrol our parks, our common government buildings, and the neighborhoods when the police are too busy to patrol every single road in our neighborhoods at night. That's all I have. Thank you.
That's actually a valid point that I've discussed with the town of Clifton Park, and it works very good. It's very good program. I am told by Phil Barrett, yes, any sheriff does cost us funds. We could have negotiated that contract down to 1 shift versus 2 shifts. And as he said to me, he said, anything is open to conversation and thoughtful discussion. It could be the shifts, it could be the times, the cars. But to have a blatant no, we're not gonna even discuss it, is just unthinkable to me.
One last thing, when it comes to spending money on any first responder, the fire departments, EMS, law enforcement, it's one of our biggest budget items that we deal with. And it's such a sensitive issue, just like school lunches or books or something for a school. And we're afraid to say no when we realize, because we don't want to say, oh, we don't want to provide this service to the public. And that's just not true. We all want to provide. We want to make sure we have the best services throughout our town. And when we discuss this, we can't get tied up in our emotions of that we're doing the wrong thing to our town.
Thanks, Matt.
And just to finish on this, we are serviced by two of the greatest police agencies, law enforcement agencies in our country, the Saratoga Sheriff's Department and the New York State Police. And we're blessed to have one of the 4 state police barracks in the county located right here in Malta. And the Sheriff's Department, even without the contract in effect, I see them every day on Route 9 and patrolling our town. They're doing a phenomenal job, and along with the fire departments and the EMS. We are blessed in that way.
All right, thank you, Matt. Let's move on to our agenda. We have 2 action items tonight. The first is to approve the use of a Village of Round Lake employee as a temporary water distribution system operator for a special project. That special project is hydrant flushing. We have 4 employees of our water department. They require a 5th hand to effectively flush all the hydrants for Malta Water District Number 1. So the Village of Round Lake has graciously offered to lend us somebody. And so can we have a motion and a second first, and then we'll have discussion?
So move.
Second? Discussion.
Did Saratoga Water Services in the past, when they were a private company, hire extra hands for the flushing?
No, but they had more employees, including Alec himself.
They had one more. So when we hired him,
No, they had 4 regular employees and Alec himself, correct? One of them was part-time but worked during hydrant flushing, right? Yeah, other than the admin. So we're actually we have 3 that you can do the flushing.
we're hiring an awful lot of
This is, well,
assistants and part-times, and I saw him out there this afternoon. He did our street, there was one guy there.
well, they work in one hydrant, they have to be at different hydrants. And the Village of Round Lake has offered to lend us this person.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you.
To us, instead of us hiring somebody. We're hiring for 2 weeks. Well, we're not even hiring him, he's lending us to him. We're entering an intermunicipal agreement with the village to use a guy. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Any opposed? Next, we have a budget transfer, this $10,000 to increase the budget to reflect the application of the county economic development grant that we applied to for. Can I have a motion
So move.
and a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move on to the discussion items for possible action. On 5.5, the first one is the elephant in the room, the local law to impose a moratorium on certain land development applications within the town of Malta.
I have a question.
Well,
Yes.
first off, I'll go real fast, Matt. I'm glad we're discussing it because I don't like to go against my own rules and pop something onto the public without it being duly informed. But I'll be prepared to vote on this issue our next town board.
That's the proposal here tonight, to put it on for the May 5th.
Right?
Yeah.
Put it on for May 5th, and then
Do we want to discuss it further tonight?
I have a question for Steve. We adopt a moratorium, is it scalable back as we pass legislation that addresses the comprehensive plan?
Yes, we have the ability to either amend the local law, and the local law does have a provision in there authorizing us to change the scope of the moratorium. Under,
So in the event that we adopt the moratorium tomorrow, or next week, or in 2 weeks, if we actually adopt legislation addressing the issues that we've resolved, we can then modify the moratorium.
yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
We could if it, if the changes are such that it would make sense to do that, yes, we can. We have the ability under the local law. The only thing is sometimes certain provisions in your zoning update may also impact others. So, you'd have to evaluate on a case-by-case basis, but the local law does authorize that type of change.
So, we've worked, as everybody knows, we've worked quite tirelessly for the past 2 months trying to come to agreements about what exactly we want to change in our land use code, what we want to adopt from the comprehensive plan. And I think we already had a public hearing on it, right? Correct? On the moratorium?
Yes, we did.
And we referred it to the Saratoga County Planning Board
Yes.
and posted it in the
And
papers.
we learned, at least I learned something tonight, that prior, we were talking about moratorium. I think, I'm not holding you exact numbers, but we had like 10, 12 projects already, applications before we start talking about moratorium. And since then, we got close to what, another 20 applications for possible building in Malta. So our biggest constituents that I talked to concerned about the population expansion of Malta, and the congestion is it's well on its way.
Yes.
Is it possible to also include a moratorium on solar and battery inside here, or do they have to be separate?
Well, it's possible to include it.
Is other communities that are close have put moratoriums on solar and especially battery plants in the area because of the hazard. Possible?
Well, yeah, it's possible, but the local law that we prepared may need to be amended to accommodate that. As drafted, it was intended to address primarily large-scale developments, both residential and commercial in nature. I don't know if those will fall under this as presently drafted. I'd have to look at it a little closer, but it may require an amendment to be clear that those things, but we don't have a law. We could pass a separate moratorium as necessary, or in our zoning update, we could just proceed to continue to update that. And if I'm not aware of any pending applications or.
We do it under here also, see that it's a comprehensive
Well, it's,
plan slash zoning moratorium. Kind of include that.
it's a broad moratorium. Again, as I said, designed with what your original intent was, which was larger scale development. And it does broadly prevent applications related to, these larger developments, but it doesn't specifically address
those items in this, in the language of the local law.
That's the next thing.
So in the local law, it says the town, that, will not accept, process, consider, or approve land development applications, which presumably is permits or approvals, including but not limited to major subdivisions, form-based code applications, plan development districts, zoning change applications, use variance, special use permits, and site plan applications. So as broadly interpreted, I think those type of applications would be covered, but they're not specifically mentioned in the local law.
So what would you advise on
Um, It's tough to give advice on the spot. This local law has been obviously drafted for a couple of months. My initial reaction is that those type of would be included. And there is also a waiver process within the local law if it's passed, so they could be exempted out if necessary. But if you're 100% want clarity, we would have to amend slightly the local law, which would require a new law to be drafted, new public hearing, new referral. So you would be looking at a substantial delay in passing the local law in order to get the clarity that you're asking for. But my opinion is the way in which this is drafted is broad, and then it exempts out certain things. And if you look at the exemptions, they're single-family, minor subdivisions, zoning board applications for, 1 or 2 family residents, general applications for pools, decks. Those things are not exempted out. So without specifically referencing them, I believe it's covered. And what we did is draft a broad law in one respect, saying it applies to all developments except for these, what we deem to be minor developments, neither of which were solar or otherwise. And then secondly, our law, while broad, was also tolerant because it does not affect pending applications.
Any other discussion? Just by information, we did tonight agree to have a workshop on May 19th before our regular meeting, I believe, to discuss amending our plan development district legislation.
What time is that going to be?
4 o'clock. Any other discussion on moratorium? Next, we had a speaker a couple of meetings ago, that was advocating for us to encourage the state of New York to regulate a substance called kratom. If you don't know what that is, well, you'll have to look it up. I don't even know that I can really explain it. It is a natural substance, but that is, been used for a long time, centuries maybe, in Southeast Asia for pain relief and mood enhancement. And this says it claims to have opioid withdrawal properties, but when it's imported into the United States, it's purified, it's totally unregulated in New York State. And this mother whose son died, she's convinced he died because of his use of kratom, but it's not regulated at all. And so she was encouraging us to adopt a resolution to encourage New York State to pass legislation to at least regulate it. It's now sold in like energy drinks that you can just buy, in a convenience store, and they say it's highly addictive. So I shared with everybody the resolution that the Saratoga County adopted, encouraging New York State to regulate the use of kratom. I apologize, late in the day, I found an email in my spam from someone, we all got it, so I don't know if it went to your spam, from some group of people who are advocating some sort of regulation, but not advocating an outright ban. So it's just to put it out there to see how the board feels. Do we want to try to pursue this? Do we want to have our town attorney try to draft
Is this
something?
is this something that the state is actually considering, or is it?
I
just
believe so.
a
Well,
okay.
yeah, my little research, there's about 6 states that currently, it's illegal to sell. All the rest of the states, it's legal to sell. And some states, in some form or another, have some kind of regulation, only like over 18, or some other towns, municipalities have deemed it illegal within their state, but the state hasn't. So it's a potent drug that, just like anything, right? Red dye number 9 M&Ms are bad for you, too many of those. So anything of abundance and abuse is bad for you, and this potentially has a lot of bad side effects for abuse. So I do believe it needs to be regulated. So I'm in some kind of form of support in the state and a regulation of this, but not to ban it, because it does have good effects for pain. It's monitored, it's given out by doctors to patients, and I'm looking at the same email that you got from,
Today, so late today, yeah.
Laura Romy, John Shinholster, Dr. Heidi Skorka. I apologize if I said your names wrong. So there is some use and people using it, and that's changed their lives for the better. Just like every drug is not for everybody. But, so that's what my thought.
But you agree that we should try to pursue maybe supporting some sort of regulation?
On a drug like this, yes.
May I just add, there is a Malta connection to this particular young man. He lived in my neighborhood as a young boy, and his family moved away a little later, but he was a Malta resident, and it's, to me, terribly sad. And those of us who have had teenage boys, they're never easy.
No doubt.
Teenagers in general are not easy.
So.
My son doesn't believe in one scoop of anything.
So
And
at
that's,
any rate,
what happened.
because there is a Malta connection, I feel a little push here to support this. And
Anybody else, any comments down the road?
I support it.
Okay, well, we'll work on that. Rest of this, I think, should go fairly quickly. Well, no, we still have another discussion. We have a request. We discussed this briefly. I talked it over with the receiver of taxes, thought maybe it would be better for her to actually come tell us why she thinks that her position should be an appointed position instead of an elected position. So Candace Schmidt, our receiver of taxes, is here to talk to us.
I do want to tell you and just give you a little brief idea about what we do in the receiver of taxes. We are very active for 3 months of the year. We collect $13 million worth of your tax dollars for 6,500 properties. And we are currently, after April 1st, we were 96% collected. Just wanted to let you know that. Out of that 13 million, 5 million of that goes to the town. The rest of it goes to the county. You pay for your receiver of taxes and a deputy. We currently are a 2-person office and do that job within 3 months of the year. We work in October for maybe a couple of days. We work in November for a couple of days, and then we run like heck in December. We get the bills the week of Christmas, after Christmas, and we have to get them sorted and put out in the mail. This job, when you go to do the collection, is a highly technical job. It's not a lawyer's job or a doctor's job, but I took this job over not knowing what the job was and had 29 years with the town before I took the tax receiver's
As
job.
bookkeeper.
As bookkeeper. So as an accountant.
Right.
And it was tough for me. I don't think this job should be an elected position. I don't think anyone, just anyone, can step into that job. I've been doing it for 8 years. I'm tired. I want to leave. And I've trained my deputy. But you do need someone to help her. And I think that should be, I think the receiver of taxes should be someone that knows the job.
So the only question I got, and thank you for your service. That's a long
Thank
time.
you.
I'm sure you know all the ins and outs of everything in this town, which is fine. The question I got is like the pros and cons. Why is it beneficial for it to be appointed? Because of the technical aspect of the job.
Absolutely. The technical aspect of the job
And what's the most technical aspect of the
is
job?
knowing how to run the software, how to apply, how to get the little nuances, even when a payment comes in and there's no property number or name. There's also laws and regulations on how we have to receive the money. There's also when we apply the penalty. We don't make that up.
No, I'm sure it's very structured and
It
you know,
is very structured.
and I understand that. Is the
And the-
software our software or is it New
No.
York State?
The software is not even New York State at this point.
So it's off-the-shelf commercial?
It's not an off-the-shelf commercial per se, because it is highly technical to municipality, to a tax receiver's job. And it has to be okayed by New York State, yes. But it is not New York State has half the software.
So your job is generally administrative, and it really kind of makes no sense for it to be a political job.
Not at all. I think that even finding
You don't have any
someone-
choice about what you do, you just do it.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I think, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, was there ever some kind of like written, unwritten guidelines to have an elected tax assessor depending upon the population of?
receiver.
Tax receiver, I'm sorry, dependent upon the population of the municipality? Do you know?
Wouldn't say I would know if it's a law. It depends on their title, whether it's a receiver of taxes or a tax collector.
And what's that hurdle?
There is a
Is
class 1 town, if you're a class 1 town.
I don't know anything, I'm really just asking because I don't know anything about it.
If you're a class 1 town, which we are,
Uh-huh.
and duly because we are of a certain population, then you have to have your tax collector, that was a tax collector, is now a receiver of taxes. And it is purely numeric. It's a name and title only.
So we've reached the threshold of a class 1 town.
Yes,
right?
we have.
What number is that?
I don't know what the
Okay.
title, but
Just
we've had that.
Not trying to,
We've
I
had
really
that
am not
since-
trying as much as to learn
No,
from
no,
me
no.
and get the
no,
public to learn.
I understand that, but we've had a receiver of taxes since Sylvia. And Sylvia only had 4,500 parcels.
Uh-huh.
I have 2,000 more than Sylvia did.
Oh, listen,
her time.
we're building like crazy around here. We're gonna need a couple more people, you know, where we're going. I just don't know if it needs to be elected or appointed. I just don't know.
Elected, I think that we get away from the fact that it is a technical job. And someone needs to know what they're doing.
That's fair.
That's where I'm asking you to do that. And I was unsupported. I mean, I was supported by the committee, but I never, financially, I did my own signs. I never relied on the committee to give me money. And it doesn't pay enough to do that.
So the process would be, I mean, this board can't decide to change that position, but we can decide to send it to a public referendum, so it would appear as a proposition on the November election, if we decide to pursue this, and then the voters decide whether or not it is to remain an elected position or an appointed position.
Didn't we bring this subject up before in the last
We
5
did.
Not, no,
years for the assessor or the,
No, for the town clerk to take over the responsibilities of collecting the tax.
but that was 10 years ago at
town
least.
clerk to collect
And,
tax money?
yes,
And it
for the
would
town
go down,
clerk.
Right?
That is a position that is full-time during January, February, and March.
I know that, yeah,
What I'm saying.
yeah.
And for a town clerk to take over those responsibilities would be adding greatly to her daily operation. And that's what we tried to do back 10 years ago.
And that was a special referendum.
And that was a special referendum.
Not many people voted, but
So if we changed it, we would have to bring it back to a referendum?
no, we, like I said, we alone can't change it. All we can do is decide to send it to a referendum,
Referendum.
so.
So I'm asking you to put it on the ballot.
Right.
Is what I'm
What
asking.
is the cost for putting it on a
Can't cost that much.
referendum?
I mean, I wouldn't think
Jen?
it cost anything.
You're apt to have that.
If it were to go on the ballot, the proposition on the ballot for a general election,
fall.
it would not cost the town money. It would cost the town money if they were to hold a special election
Oh, it's
on a referendum.
But we still are well within the time frame to be able to put it on for the November election, if we choose to do so.
Town people are gonna decide, I'm all for it.
Candace, I have some questions. Would it be your intent to remain the receiver of taxes if it was?
It
no
is
longer-
not my, I would like to, retire.
Yeah.
Okay. If it doesn't pass, when is your position up for election?
In 2 years.
It's a 4-year term?
It's a 4-year term.
Now, the
And I'm
per-
not sure, I know that they changed the law. Steve, you might,
Yeah.
when
the
you would have to put
governor-
when you have to put the receiver of taxes up because it's not a
If you
main,
step down, I believe you'd have to be on the ballot, that would have to be on the ballot at the very next election.
the very
Be like
next,
with Matt, we could appoint somebody, then they'd have to be on the election the next year, and then they would have to.
right,
if they're
but there's
filling
a
your term,
number,
run a
it has
second
to
time.
be on the odd year.
It depends on the timing of the resignation as to what,
Oh, that's true. If you wait,
Yeah, that's what I'm
so-
saying.
I don't know the date offhand, I apologize, I'd have to look into it. There's a separate issue is that, whether, a permissive referendum versus what sometimes is called a mandatory referendum, you may be able to, appoint the position subject to permissive referendum.
Just a couple more questions or comments I have. If it's passed through a public referendum and it's now a position that's hired by the town board, you understand that person then is subject to be able to get fired by the town board.
it would probably be a contractual arrangement, wouldn't it, like the assessor?
Well, yeah, once they're an appointed position, they have a term and they.
Appointed for a term.
Yeah,
would it
well, again, certain positions, which I apologize, I didn't prepare for that questions on this topic, because I was actually not sure whether we were proceeding with this. But in any event, some positions have a set term. For example, the
Assessor.
controller's 2-year term, town attorney's a 2-year term. Others serve at the pleasure of the town board. I'd have to look up that issue, but I don't think that goes to the root of the issue. The question is it better for the town to have an elected receiver, or is it better for the town to have an appointed one? I can get the board the mechanics of that, and, we're going to have to put it out to one form of referendum either way.
So one final question I have here is, if it's going to become an appointed position, say it happens, then it goes out to like an open bid or same process for hiring?
No, it would be the
No.
normal process in which the town appoints, the town board would make the appointment like any of our other positions.
I definitely would want to hear from the people on this. I see the pros and cons of both of them. Keeping it elected or also having it fall under as an appointment from the town board.
Just a note of reference that when the prior tax receiver resigned, there was great panic because that person resigned in November and the role was coming up and they needed somebody and they couldn't find anybody who was qualified. And I had just gone to part-time at that time. So
Did she have a deputy when she resigned?
she did, it was Linda.
Linda,
Linda,
that's
who
right.
was a full-time employee.
Yep.
I think your annual salary is smaller than what I spent on my campaign.
Let's not go there.
Yeah.
I approached the town board about that, so
I appreciate your service. Thank you, Candace.
thank you.
Is
there anything-
Campaign than her annual salary.
So is there anything I can answer for
I mean,
anyone?
it sounds like, if I'm hearing correctly, this board is, in agreement that we can put it up for a public referendum. Is that true?
I want to hear like a public hearing first. I want people to comment on whether or not they want
Oh.
a public referendum.
It also, not to belabor the
commenting.
discussion, but it sounds like a very part-time role.
Yeah.
So
It
if
is.
the town were to hire someone, they would hire them for 1/3 of the year?
Well, basically what it would be you would hire them for the full year, but their main work hours are actually January, February, and March.
So you wouldn't have to pay
But-
them a full year's salary?
No,
and
you had,
benefits.
I think you would pay them a salary, but it would be,
Based on
it
working.
would paid out over the entire year.
Yeah, and they wouldn't get benefits if they were not full-time?
No, they would not. And I don't get benefits. The only reason I get benefits is because I'm a retiree
Yeah, okay,
of the town.
thank you.
So, is there anything else?
Next item.
All right, thanks, Candace.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next is to, we'll have a resolution to authorize the highway superintendent to attend the annual training at Cornell University. The highway superintendents all go down there and learn stuff and talk about stuff, so I'm assuming everybody will agree to that. Next, we had, we sent out requests for quotes to replace our very archaic phone system. We've had a lot of problems when we tried to connect up people in our new water department. It was hours and hours of somebody trying to figure out what went where. And so we sent out the RFQs, we got 7 back. Of those 7 responses, 4 of them were disqualified because they didn't address the community center. Connectivity to the community center was a specification in the bid. The lowest bid for the upfront cost was Northeast. That was a cost of upfront of $11,701 as compared to the second highest, First Light, which was $15,145. There was a third qualified bid that was $21,498. We eliminated that one as the high bidder. Between those two, we're actually recommending First Light because the monthly cost over 5 years for First Light is significantly lower than the monthly cost for the lower bid of Northeast. And those numbers are, over the course of 5 years, the monthly cost for First Light would be $32,040. And compared to Northeast, the monthly cost would be $53,372. On a monthly basis, it is First Light, which again was the higher bid by $4,000, not quite $4,000, is $534 a month. and Northeast is $899 a month. So most of this work was evaluated by Melissa and Julia. I'm just reporting. So First Light will be the recommendation for a resolution next week.
All right, I'm slow. So we're getting a new phone system upgrade, right? Are we getting hardware with that, new phones? All right. So that's gonna be, let's just say, for argument's sake, $12,000 for that upgrade, right?
At the upgrade, the actual upgrade is,
All right.
yes.
So what's this $32,000 a month for? To use the phone,
To use
we're
the
gonna pay $32,000 a month.
No, we're gonna pay $534 a month.
Okay,
Over the course of 5 years, it's $32,000. So we
Okay.
compared the cost for the next 5 years.
did I tell you I was slow?
Well, you know, it's math. I know it's late for math.
All right.
We know that.
So there's that, you know. Anybody have anything else to discuss, or? As you recall, we established a grant committee, and that grant committee needs a mission statement. So in working with the committee and the town attorney, we've come up with a recommended mission statement, and I'll read that now. The Town of Malta Grant Committee is dedicated to identifying and securing grant funding to enhance the town's infrastructure, improve public facilities, and develop sustainable park spaces. Through comprehensive research and expert grant writing, we work to secure resources that support the community's growth, enrich quality of life, and ensure the long-term sustainability of our town's public spaces and services. This committee will take into consideration and research grants recommended by the town board of the Town of Malta.
Is it required that the board approve mission statements of committees?
Yeah, we have in the past. I don't know if it's a legal requirement.
Yeah, well, you need to give your committee direction as to what they're tasked to do. They're solely advisory committees to the board.
Right.
So the standard practice is to adopt a mission statement so they're not operating outside of what the town board wants them to do.
They can't apply for grants on our behalf without our approval. I mean, no, it's just, right.
One thing that I would really like to see, when we have committees in towns, minutes should be required so we all know what is going on. I haven't gotten anything from the Mangino Park Committee that was
Yeah.
established. I've gotten zero. I couldn't find it on the internet. Therefore, I'd like the same thing here.
Yeah, there never really
Put
was
right into the statement.
right, there wasn't a committee ever established. There was a task force, which was basically staff. And so
There
far,
was
we
talk
haven't even put that together lately. So. This very first, and
We'd like to know what's
are
going on
minutes.
in town.
There are minutes available from the first one we did back in 2024 somewhere, so. I do my best. I provide a supervisor's report regularly, so,
We know you're doing your best. Thank you very much.
yep. So there's that. Any comments on that? I mean, we're gonna talk about adopting it next week, so you'll have time to review it if you have any other, questions on it. Next, we talked about this. We had a resident who asked that we allow fishing at the Malta Nature Preserve. As I said, and that is the park that's between Steeples Chase and St. Ledger's Woods. It's a town park. There's a large pond. It might be 2 ponds. A lot of waterfowl on it, so there's probably fish in there. I was heard that at one point it was actually stocked with fish. And for some reason, there's no fishing allowed, even though when I went there last week, there was somebody fishing. So, just want to know how you feel about it.
Do you have any opinion on this, Kristen?
I couldn't find anything in any of the paperwork that originally from when the park was established saying why there would be no fishing. I don't really know a whole lot about fishing, but I know there's fish in the pond. I've seen them. I know a lot of fishermen, but, I think people are probably fishing there already. I don't think
Yeah.
there'll be a big rush to get there to fish,
Right.
so.
I did read the PDD language that established the park, and there's nothing that precludes us from allowing fishing there.
I called Audrey on it last week. She called me back. Audrey Ball, she said that she was involved in that heavily. It had been stocked. the town is responsible for the signage and allowing fishing or hunting. Fishing can be controlled by the town, she said, but hunting is controlled by the state and the Department of
Right, no.
Encon, I guess.
We definitely don't want to be hunting.
She doesn't understand why there isn't fishing there. Now it's a safe area. But apparently, one of our past supervisors did not favor it. I can't say who.
Well, I think there, and I don't know for a fact, but in looking at it, it may be, that status of that park changed.
It did.
So.
Change hands.
No, yeah, it became town property. It wasn't intentionally, originally intended to be
right.
town property. I have a suspicion that that's maybe where it came from initially, that there was no fishing. The town has the right to the board to decide how town property is used. There's no local law or PDD requirement that would prevent fishing. So if you want to allow the fishing, I think you're authorized to do so. Having said that, you need to have a fishing license in the state of New
Right,
York.
right. You still need to comply with the laws of, fishing in New York State. Gotta come
I
see-
look forward to voting yes on that next week.
I would like to see the signs taken down.
Well, replaced, because they say no hunting, no fishing, no swimming.
Well,
Right.
the fishing crossed off them.
I like that.
I think it does raise
wanna get-
liability concerns, though. If people are going to be fishing there, it's incumbent upon the town then to ensure that the fish are edible. If there's poisons, if there's anything in there that could harm someone, and it's town property and we're authorizing fishing, the presumption would be that it's safe to fish and eat the fish. So there could be a liability and a cost associated.
Put it as catch and release then.
Kristen, did
On the sign.
you hear back from insurance? Yeah.
I did, he said there was nothing that would prevent the town in his.
Well, I'll double check with him to make sure that we.
Yeah, I mean, we can say catch and release only, I don't know.
I don't know. I think I hope it's a stress that we're responsible for what people eat, because that could be problematic, but, right? I mean,
There could be significant liability if we're.
If there's not a
Hey,
liability, if
well-
there's not a liability to the town, I would
Eyes
support.
eyes wide open, right?
yeah. But we did at least preliminarily reach out to our insurance carrier, and we'll confirm that we have coverage for bad fish.
If there's no liability to the town, I would support fishing. I would not support live bait, so not to release a new species that's not into that ecosystem. And then that begs the question, do we even have the authority to decide what type of bait can be used there? Is that a DEC regulation? Does,
We're going in a new direction. I'd have to find those answers out for you.
I think it's either fish or no fish. I say just fish. That's good
But I
activity.
will look into it to make sure
Catch
that
and
we have
release.
insurance coverage, and
That's simple.
if there's any ability for us to further regulate what type of fishing and bait. I mean, we're not talking about putting boats and stuff on there. We're just talking about kids hopefully
Talking
going
about
out
Line
with
over.
their
the
pole,
worms you get at Stewart's.
right?
Because it really does
Then
it.
we can go
Fishing
out
there
to
anyways.
Stewart's. Right.
Okay.
Fishing there now.
But I'll get back to the board. I'll prepare a resolution and have some answers.
So next, as we discussed previously, the property, our property maintenance supervisor and our Parks and Recs director, and I think that the last building down at, well, I know, the last building down at Manginos needs to be demolished. It's now been vacant for a number of years. There are animals living in there. There's mold everywhere. Before we can do that, though, we need an evaluation about whether or not there's actually asbestos in the building. So we got a proposal to evaluate what possibility of asbestos in the building. The cost of that is $5,470.
I got a call that I'm supposed to get on April 29th from the engineer asking him about the structure and if it should come down or if it shouldn't come down.
I think, like I say, I think anybody that goes
I
down
want
there.
a structural engineer.
Just make sure you ask them about the plumbing, you know. I'd like a bathroom out there.
Toilet, Al.
We're gonna have a public park, we're gonna have to have public bathroom. I prefer, if it doesn't have to be a porta potty that gets knocked over in the wind, and just have a little something like we got at Chinataha. It's a bathroom.
It is.
At a park, it's easy.
Yeah,
No.
it is something that we've discussed with our chair of our grants committee. There's really a lot of money out there for establishing public parks, especially on waterways, so
It's not a
so hopefully we
park
can find
yet.
money. No, it's not a park yet.
Want to keep the acid levels down in the lake.
If we had to sell it, we could still sell
No,
it, right?
no, it's parkland. We bought it as parkland, it's just not open. So
That-
we cannot
that-
sell it.
You know, I hear that over and over, but there was a beautiful park in Albany, and they put an underground sewage plant under it. So, you know,
Okay, so I can't say
I
for
hear
sure
that
we
all the
can't
time.
sell it, but it's a process to alienate parkland.
Oh,
And it's a
it's
very
a process.
difficult process,
okay,
so, and we've already,
everything's a process.
gone too far, so. So I'm gonna be asking to have you look at, no matter what, we have to find out if there's asbestos in the building to do anything with it, even tear it down. So, and there may not be. Hopefully, there isn't. We also will be acting next week on the Fire and EMS Service Awards, that LoSAP that that the president of Malta Ridge talked about. And last two items are about, we sent out bids for replacement windows and roofs for the town court building. For the windows, we only got one bid, and that is $13,583 from LP3. Window Working of Saratoga, a DBA. So that was the lowest and the highest
Does
bid.
that cover the materials as well, or just
Yes,
labor? Okay.
yes, the windows themselves were almost $10,000, the labor was 36. So that was that, the only bid we got. For the roofs, we received 3 bids. One of them we disqualified as incomplete, didn't really have enough information in it. So we got 2 other bids, they're both pretty close. The low bidder, S&L Roofing and Sheet Metal, it was $33,900. And the second lowest, Titan Roofing, was $39,000. They're essentially the same bid, just different prices, so we are recommending that we take the lower bid, $33,900 for the roof. So that's a total of around $50,000 for windows and roof for the court.
$47,483.
Huh?
$47,483 for windows and roof.
He's good with math, even this late.
That's why we make good tag team, that's his forte. Now, replacing the windows and roofs, I'm sure it's a good investment, because we're getting a new courthouse, but that building's gonna get repurposed, right? It's not getting knocked down?
Well, we're gonna have to talk about the court at some point. The price tag was almost $6 million, and we don't have $6 million. Again, our grants committee is gonna try to look for some money, see if we can find some money from someplace else to help pay for it. But unless and until we actually find grants, that project is on hold. Unless you can find a money tree.
5.6 million, right?
5.7 million.
5.7 million.
It did include a little more than $1 million of site work, basically drainage and all of those issues that we have on site here. But other than that, I even asked them to, kind of bare bones it, and that's what we came up with.
Well, the courthouse ain't gonna make it into the future for functioning as a courthouse. So,
No, it's true. It's not,
well, we gotta think of outside the box or
Yeah.
something.
So we'll delve into that again sometime. Any other issues come before this board? We have a public comment period. If anybody from the public has anything they want to say.
I'd like to add that this past Friday and Saturday was the 250th anniversary of the Battles of Concord and Lexington, and we are starting the next 8 years are the 250th anniversary of a lot of battles leading from Lexington up through Saratoga, and finally the Battle of Yorktown. So as a history buff, I'm looking forward to the next several years.
Yeah, and the county's putting a lot of push, so. If there's nothing else, everybody will be glad to hear this, a request that we go into an attorney-client privilege to discuss an ongoing litigation. When we come back from that, this board will not conduct any other further business tonight. So you don't have to wait for us to come back. You can all go home. You guys can all,
So move to go to executive session.
yes. We're going into attorney-client.
I'm sorry, attorney-client privilege.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everybody, for coming out.